what I've learned from many, many years and experience in my own life is that when you are faced with two rather opposing choices, and one seems easier and the other seems way more difficult, it's the one that is way more difficult that is the one that is the way to go, that will yield you the healing and the growth and the journey that you really need to take. When people with codependency keep allowing the person untreated or the person with BPD or even a narcissist back into your life with the Hoovers, etc., and there's a lot of compelling things, and there's, there is a type of addictive thing with that, but people need to make a different choice for their own well-being to be able to get on the journey and the path. So I've learned when there are two choices and one is the path of least resistance, that's the one that leads people to continue around the same cycles and keep abandoning oneself. Or even when I had BPD, if I'd have chosen the path of less resistance, I never would have recovered from BPD. So when you have codependency, there are two distinct choices to make. For many people are at that fork in the road, so to speak, and you may get to the fork in the road many times over, and many times over you may take the path of least resistance. You may take the easiest choice, but make no mistake about it, the easiest choice is the most difficult choice, and the most difficult choice is not easy, but it will yield you the journey that you seek, that you need to get out of these type of relationships and the codependency that is your response to adverse childhood experience that you need to know more about. That, I work with clients all the time on, if you resonate with me, I'm out here to work with you on understanding, growing, letting go, how to do that, what's blocking you, how to really heal from the relationship, and also why you have codependence to take that healing recovery journey. And it is the difficult choice initially, but it is the path out of the agony that you've been in, potentially in iterations, and whether knowingly or not, for your entire life. And it is that compelling woundedness inside of you that keeps you in the cycles with a person with BPD or a narcissist or cluster B after cluster B, because there's reparation that you as a codependent need to your adverse childhood experience and response. And so in this video, I'm going to be reading a comment from a commenter and trying in a very empathic and gentle way to give people with codependency who are in these most compelling and yet damaging relationships wherein neither party is going to get help or grow. Hopefully, something a little more enlightening for you to think about, and I hope it helps, and I hope it's food for thought. So remember, the choice that seems so difficult, which is getting out of the relationship with the person with BPD or even NPD, it's really going to wind up being way more painful and difficult for you to keep making the, quote, easier choice or taking the path of least resistance. Remember, and as I know in my life journey, kites fly higher into the wind to take the path of the most resistance. That is the most painful choice right now, because it's that very adversity and sticking with that process and that journey as the way I work with clients on that. That's your road to recovery. That's your way to knowing yourself better, creating that relationship with yourself before you even think about who do you want to be in a relationship with next. So I hope the rest of this video will be helpful. Let's get into it. I want to address a comment left on my video. Inside BPD, why exes aren't, quote, the bad guy, unquote. You can't help them. And I just want to say, when I reading this comment and replying back to it, I'm not replying exactly just back to the commenter. my intention is a more general statements in reply for hopefully the commenter. The computer's up to something over there, and others to learn from. So it's not directed just to the commenter, and I just want to make that clear because I think a lot of people might identify with where this person is right now, or maybe you've been there if in fact you're not there now. So the commenter said, hi, have you done a video on how, as a non-BPD significant other, you are supposed to deal with a BPD rage split, being falsely accused of being a cheat and a liar, and being told that they hate you and that you're disgusting? What on earth are you supposed to do to pacify this or reassure them? If anything, everything you say is twisted and used against you. I used to leave, but then this was abandoning to them and made everything worse. And then the person said, and unfortunately, after taking so much, I normally end up getting angry and we have horrific arguments. Any advice or videos you can put this way? And then they just said, you're doing a great job, by the way. So this isn't just aimed at the commenter, but sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing such a great job when people are in this place. I mean, I can't save the world or anything, so okay, fair enough. But let's just deal with a couple of issues here. First of all, so I did answer this first comment, in a comment. And basically, aside from what else I said, to the question, how are you supposed to deal as a loved one, right? In any relationship type, really. But how are you supposed to deal with the rage of people with BPD, some, not all are the same, the split, the being falsely accused, etc. Well, and what can you do to reassure them? What was that? Pacify, wow. Or reassure them. Well, first of all, there's like I said, seriously, in my comment, I said, seriously, there's nothing you can do. To reassure them, you can try, and you can try, and you can try, but they have patterns and triggers and issues that unless they get significant therapy are just going to keep recycling, repetition, and compulsions. So with that then, the idea of pacifying somebody with BPD, wow. I mean, who's really hurting you in a relationship and it's on again, off again, etc. Well, that's interesting because I don't know if that's just a feeling of desperation that somebody would say pacify. Kind of like just, what do I do to get them to get off my back? What do I do to get them to leave me alone? What do I do to get them to stop doing all it is they do? And truthfully, seriously, the answer to that is there's nothing you can do. You can try the validation. Don't think it's going to work in this person's case or many people's cases. You can try so many different things, but you know what? Can't lead the horse to water to get therapy. And if they don't get therapy, they're not going to change. You're going to go around the same cycles. They're going to go around the same cycles. And if you're with somebody with BPD, you're going to go around the same cycles too. Now, remember that they said, what can you do to pacify or reassure them, okay? Because this is going to be important to the next part. So then I had commented back, and then they commented back again, and they said, thank you for my other comment. And then they said, I guess I'm staying for various reasons. Well, interesting how many people are staying, and can you resonate with this? Are you staying for like various reasons? But maybe you don't really know what they are. Is that conscious or subconscious what those reasons are? And then are the reasons rationalized reasons? So they might become excuses for you, and you may or may not be consciously aware of that. Mean this in an empathic, gentle, caring way, not judgmental. And then they said, I wasn't, but I think I have now become codependent. And it feels like I become addicted to her and to the unhealthy bond. The intensity of it all, when I finish it, I actually miss it. Somehow it's, really unhealthy. People don't just become codependent after being in a relationship with somebody with BPD and what you're going through there, and what you're not, how you're abandoning yourself and not taking care of yourself. You know, they said that they have now become a codependent. I would suggest that they wouldn't even be there, let alone for on and off again relationship struggles, and getting reactive and angry and having terrible arguments and fights with their partner with BPD. None of that would all be happening if they weren't codependent, and what all that means. So, because, you know, they're trying to work out a pattern from somewhere else in their life, from childhood, subconscious maybe right now. But you're not just trying to work out a pattern or change somebody with BPD, which you really can't do. You're trying to change something that you need to change inside of you in an externalized fashion. And people do that without being consciously aware. That's what they're actually doing. And so I guess when they said when they finish it, and then they miss her, and or maybe they miss the chaos and drama too, maybe unbeknownst to them. Lots of clients I work with end up coming to that realization as well. So this has been on again, off again many times. I take it from what the commenter said. And this is, of course, a very common experience for people too, who for whatever reasons, no judgment, keep on either reverse Hoover or engage fully in a Hoover and go back to the relationship, and the same thing happens over and over again. So then the commenter continues. I can't see this. It's like, the commenter continues. Also, I think I'm in love with her false self. Okay, well, there's a complex issue right there. Because on the one hand, everybody who's loving an untreated person with borderline personality is loving a false self. Okay, so unknowingly, not intentionally, but there is no real self. There is no authentic self, until unless significant treatment. So in a way, when the commenter says, I think I'm in love with her false self, okay, because that's kind of, who people end up loving is the false self of the person with BPD, who turns out not to be the person that you thought they were when you first fell in love with them. But then the other thing I would say about that is, how can you really love a false self? How can you really be in love with somebody's false self? How can you really be in love with the person? Not questioning that, you may well feel love, or you felt love for a person in your life with BPD, untreated especially. But think about it. What is that love? And aside from physical intimacy, etc., and attraction, emotionally think about what is that love. What does that, quote, love, unquote, really mean? Is that healthy on your part? It's not happening or coming from the person with BPD and the false self, who everybody is essentially loving, unless somebody's been really significantly treated enough with BPD to have found their authentic self that, quote, psychologically died, unquote, as Melanie Klein says in Object Relations Theory. So that's a sticky wicket, that whole thing right there, because that's where people with codependency have a lot more responsibility, not for what happened to you, or not for what the person with BP needs to learn how to take responsibility for and stop, but you have a lot more responsibility for why you're still there and the choices you're making, even though there can be an addictive factor, and even though you might not consciously be aware of the patterns that you're repeating from something in your childhood, and who is this person with BPD and this whole struggle of, chaos and drama and arguments and difficulty for a little bit of good, for all the other to happen again. What is it really replaying out for you that may well be in your subconscious? And that's the kind of work I do with people, to help them to understand these things, process them, and heal them. And then the commenter continues, when we break up, she hoovers me. She says everything I want to hear, and she promises to get counseling. She then admits to her faults, which rarely happens. And I would just say, and the person said, and she loves me, can't live without me. And after several days of it, I finally let her back just for the exact same repetitive jealousy rages to happen. Well, and it sounds like this commenter, and maybe others of you out there, have been around this cycle more than a few times. I've had lots of clients over the years, been doing this for 10, 20, 25, 30 years. Been cycling off and on. Maybe it's been 10, 12, 14, 15 times over the course of the years of the relationship. Here's the thing, right? So yeah, somebody untreated with BPD is going to create all this chaos and drama. But if you're there staying with them for any of the reasons or other reasons than is stated by this commenter, can you see yet how, if you haven't realized already, you have a big part in that? Because they're doing what they're doing, okay? The person with BPD is doing what they're doing because their patterns, their adverse childhood response, not saying it's okay, not trying to apologize for it or making excuses for it. But then, so this person has let this person come back multiple times, as people do, with all those promises. So here's a question for you. If this resonates with you and you're a codependent, if you've done this or you're thinking about letting somebody back in your life yet again or just again, if you've done that before, to be able to live through the knowing and the experience, well, the learning and the experience that they are actually making false promises and that they don't go get therapy. I'm not saying every, but people in this cycle where they're untreated, they often aren't going to go get therapy. So what is the reason then, or how can you justify to yourself that it's all about the person with BPD when you have taken them back, not only once based on false promises, that can happen to anybody, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, 7 times. What I'm trying to say here to people with codependency in an empathic and gentle, caring way is, with a little nudge, for you to think about, this is your responsibility that's being abdicated by you, obviously probably not on purpose, but subconsciously, because if you keep believing, or are you really believing, but if you keep allowing a person with BPD to come back with all these false promises, and you've been through this several times now, so or maybe it's only been once, but for lots of people it's been more than once, now they're false promises. So what's my point here? My point is, what are you doing to yourself and why? What is it that you're looking for? And it's not about that person with BPD. It's really about what you need to know more about yourself and the healing journey that you need to take. Not only to heal codependency, but do family of origin work and self-differentiation and learn more about just what pattern in your life are you replicating? And who is this person with BPD representing to your inner child or your subconscious? And I'm not saying that equates exactly with people with BPD when they're projecting and what they don't know about themselves, but this is part of the message I want to bring here. This is what I wade into with clients gently in different ways. Each person is different, to help them actually create change and experience growth and healing in their lives. So these are some pertinent questions, I think, for people to think about at the very least. And if it pisses you off, well, then you're not ready to hear it yet. I don't know where everybody's at with this. The commenter said, I think I also feel sorry for her because I know she had severe adverse childhood experience as a child and possibly falsely believed I could help her. But in actual fact, I'm just enabling her behavior by always letting her back. Boy, can you resonate with that at all? Because if you can, I'm out here to help you, okay? This is a statement and a half. You see how people know things, but they're not taking them in, or they're still pushing that knowing away, or the gut feeling, or the gut instinct. And yes, feeling sorry for them. As the commenter recognizes, it doesn't help the person with BPD. It's not helping the commenter. It won't help you if you're in a relationship with somebody with BPD and you have codependency, which pretty much everybody in a relationship with somebody with BPD does have. Talking about really people that aren't getting therapy with BPD, aren't really treated, people have adverse childhood experience in their life, and it has created in them a codependent response, wasn't at the level of what creates what we're still calling borderline personality because of psychiatry. But I'm going to have more coming on that and try to break the lexicon of language, at least on this little channel. So feeling sorry for them, yes. Well, that, you know what that is? Misplaced empathy. And it's also, to be really honest with you, if you're codependent, it might really be what you're feeling, but guess what? There's so much else under there that really is more about the avoidance of your own pain, the not knowing how to let go. It's your pattern cycle you're in response to the repetition compulsions of the person with BPD. So yeah, she had a really rough childhood. Most people diagnosed with BPD do. Rough to horrible, but it's now their responsibility to do something about that by getting treatment. And the commenter said that they believe they could help her, but in actual fact, I'm just enabling her behavior, always letting her back. Yes, well, you know what? You are. Any codependent who is enabling when they let the person with BPD come back. And when you know that, then the next question, and something I would really advise anybody in this commenter's position or the commenter, that's a time to go to therapy to find out what's going on for you in this whole equation. Because if you know that the taking them back is enabling, then what you're not, the commenter and maybe other people, what people are not facing is self, is the woundedness in your own inner child. What patterns are you carrying from your family of origin? What's in your way that now you're in somebody else's way, actually, by enabling them? It helps no one. So why does it continue? You know, what is it about what you need to know more about yourself, why it continues? And then the commenter said, she really is just a whirlwind of chaos and confusion, light and dark, but there's such a broken, vulnerable child at the core that just needs healing. Well, you know, yes, there is, but they need to make the decision to get that healing for themselves. It's a long, arduous, difficult journey, but a rewarding one. But you can't help that person heal that very vulnerable child inside that needs healing. Like this commenter even said, they know that they're enabling this person. So guess what that means? When you're not only really hurting and you're reactive now to a person with BPD, and it's been on, it's been off, etc. This is the really unhealthy nature for codependents and for untreated people or not well enough treated people with BPD, because this cycle of enabling them. So you're doing that for reasons that you need to explore in therapy, because you're not taking care of yourself and you're not helping them. So what is that, do you think? I happen to know what it is, but I'm not going to sit here and say it because I don't want to offend people who aren't ready. I do that work with clients. So the other thing is that when you are enabling someone like that, and yes, they have this very vulnerable, wounded, lost self and child inside, and they need a lot of healing. But when you know you're enabling them, guess what that means? For some needs of your own, which you may or may not consciously be aware of, you are knowingly, this commenter is knowingly, some other people might be knowingly, and a lot of people might be doing this unknowingly, standing in between the person with BPD and their bottom, because you're enabling them, keeping them out of a space where experience, pain, events in their life, if you stop going around the same circle with them, and you're only responsible for your part of the circle, or the pattern, the unhealthy relationship, you're blocking potentially their road to recovery. No, you're not stopping them from going to therapy, but you're enabling them, like the commenter said. And then what's happening for you, right? And you can't heal them, and you can't help them, and you can't rescue them. Oh, and well, I shouldn't say this on this video, I guess, but apparently this person's actually had the person with BPD email me. So I really hope this is helpful for somebody with codependency. It's in response to this commenter, but this commenter isn't alone. This commenter is just somebody who's really, really, really aware, more aware than I think he or she realizes. But the thing about that is, so here's a little tidbit about codependency. People are not, like I did a video, codependency is not altruism. People with codependency are not hanging in with people with BPD untreated, going through all they're going through, asking for ways to pacify or reassure them, or just, expect something from them that they can't give you, or expect them to be somebody that they can't be, and loving their false self. Well, all this chaos and drama, okay, it's not a one-sided proposition. It may seem like it starts more with the person with BPD, but then the codependent engages it. And the codependent now, person with codependency, has responsibility for what you're engaging. Enabling, feeling sorry for them, abandoning yourself. Think about it. Don't you think that you need to take care of yourself? Because you have a wounded inner child inside. That's why you connect and relate so much to how much they're hurting. Not to say it's the same level of anything in particular. But so it's really important for codependents to take a look at this. And I think that this was a really revelatory, comment, because the commenter is so aware, and yet the pattern persists because it's that compelling. So repetition cycles, repetition compulsions don't just belong to people with BPD. They also play out for people with codependency. And this person knows they're enabling this person while feeling sorry for them, but they're in their way. Just as the person with BPD, a lot of people with codependency allow that person with BPD to stay in your way from your, recovery, from healing what you need to heal. But why is that? People are subconsciously avoiding, with BPD of course, but codependents are subconsciously avoiding their own work. It's really painful and difficult to go back to what wounded you in your childhood, what the territory in your emotional landscape is that has you in this ongoing pattern with somebody. And this commenter admitted, it's not the same for everybody, but this commenter said that he or she gets very reactionary, and then they end up in horrible arguments. So this is like one of those unhealthy bonds for sure. And guess what? They don't work out, and people can't rescue each other. But I hope just by reading the commenter's comments and responding back gave me an opportunity, I hope, to present this just again in just a little bit kind of perspective, different way, that maybe might help somebody with codependency to hear something just a tad different, and whether or not it can move you into a different action to start to take steps to break your own codependent pattern and stop rescuing and self-abandoning to try to help somebody else you think needs so much help, when guess what? If you're codependent in one of these situations, you equally need your own significant therapy and help to heal your woundedness and what's happened to you and what is specific to your life and situation and now your emotional landscape. So we hear a lot about what people with BPD do, yes, and I'm not excusing any of that. But people who stay stuck in that narrative of focus on the person with BPD, or keep making that choice, knowingly or unknowingly, keep abandoning themselves, which I know I've said before, but I hope this opens it up a little bit more for you to maybe think about it, feel it, maybe hear the message that so many people with codependency are avoiding their own work, their own healing, and there's so many reasons for that. I'll just leave it at that. But that your journey with codependency, when you're with somebody untreated with BPD or who's not enough treated significantly, you're already in this really damaging relationship. The first thing you really need to do for yourself, to start walking a path of not only healing and recovery for yourself that you can choose, can't choose that path for the person with BPD. The first thing is to leave the relationship. To do You know, what I've learned in all my experience, not only in 32 years of working with people, but also my own lived experience, what I've learned over, I mean, I'm 62 years old now, so I hate a lot of years anyways, and things to learn from, is we can't heal what we don't face. And if we don't learn to embrace our own pain, then we could codependently stay stuck trying to rescue someone else, when actually, what about the fact that you need to rescue yourself now? People have a way of not doing the work that they need to do for themselves, externalizing that out to someone else, and it repeats patterns from childhood on the part of those with codependency as well. So I hope you found this thought-provoking, helpful. If it pissed you off, well, then maybe it was supposed to. It's not my intent, of course. I'm here to try to help. And remember, if I resonate with you, I'm out here to work with you. I really help people through, going from being a codependent and in these relationships to breaking free from the relationship, if that hasn't been done already, to really solidly getting into a no-contact position, and to being able, and to really be able to start that journey of yours if you have codependency. If you've been treated like this, and if you're in love with somebody's false self, this person happens to be very aware of this commenter, because everybody's in love with the false self of somebody with BPD untreated, because there is no other self there to love. And there might be, glimmers or fragments of who they could be, but it's not who they are right now. So when you know that you're enabling, please know that you're not only blocking someone else's opportunity to find their way to recovery sooner or later, or maybe not, but whatever the case, you're also holding yourself back and keeping yourself stuck in pain that is from your childhood, that has been living on inside of you all these years, maybe unbeknownst to people, because it often gets shoved down into the subconscious. But you can't rescue the person with BPD, but you can make the choice to help yourself today. And it's gut-wrenching stuff. It is not easy. You cannot heal. You cannot move forward in your life without looking at the pain that's in your way right now. And so the first, I hate to say object, but the first obstacle in your way right now is leaving a relationship and letting that person go also, so you're not enabling them, and between them and their bottom. That's the first step. And the second step is starting to focus on you. And I know that it's really difficult. When you're in a relationship with somebody with BPD, untreated, etc., and all that people go through, and this commenter seemed to be wanting to find a way to, pacify or reassure them, you seriously can't do that. You seriously can't get anybody to see anything they don't see, as much as I can't get a lot of codependent people to maybe hear me right now. I don't know, maybe some will. And many do want to work with me, and maybe you'll be one of them. And many don't hear the message exactly because they defend against it. So remember, when you're in a defensive place, whether you're aware of it or not, you're part of the dyad. You're part of the dynamic with the person with BPD. It's not all them. I'm not saying it's 50-50, but you're part of it now, if you can relate to this, what this commenter was describing. And so you need to take responsibility for your part in that, in terms of taking care of yourself, getting on your own healing and recovery journey. You can't be in a protective place and learn at the same time. So choices have to be made, and they feel like impossible choices to make. And another thing I just like to close with here is that lots of people come to me to work with me, if I resonate with you, when they're still in a relationship. On and off happens during the work. I don't judge people. So don't feel like you have to get it all done and go no contact before you reach out for help. Some people need help to make those decisions and choices for themselves, to grow into those choices, to be able to move forward from being in that side of the dyad that it's now a back and forth situation. I'm not trying to say it's all equal or anything of the sort, but it's equally as unhealthy. And it keeps equally both parties stuck and not doing the work. The person with BPD and the codependent. Take care.